Okay. All right. Okay, you're back. You're just talking
Okay.
about the second part being very foundational and it being useful to your projects, your project.
Yeah, the playlist started out pretty slow and like excruciating details, and then the last half was like I feel like more theoretical and practical and higher level, which is exactly what I was looking for. But anyways, yeah, so like SCOS, simple knowledge, what is it, organization system, um, much better than OWL because you can connect vocabularies, data sets, ontologies, whatever, um, in a lot of different ways to kind of so that you can move between and have kind of like a connective relational tissue between uh, different models and ontologies and ways of thinking. So for my project, I'm really like motivated to try to play with this so that if I'm writing about a topic and somebody else is writing about a topic and we're using our own words because it's like the model we have about the world,
Mm-hmm.
so we're using our own vocabularies and ontologies. Um, if if we can map those to kind of like higher level concepts that are more kind of general in like
Okay.
DBpedia, for example, or something,
Sure.
then you can look at other people like what they've said about those concepts and how they're thinking about it, and kind of like there's just so much that can be done there, which is really exciting to me. And then the other things that I kind of took away, I mean, there was a bunch, but the searching and exploratory search, like that's something I've always like dreamed about, is like just being able to kind of like think divergently and outside the box and search things in that way, rather than just with such a directed input output approach like what Google gives us, of just like you have to know what you're looking for and specifically what it is that you're looking for. You send a query and then you get a list of curated results with everything else just like removed. So yeah, I'm just like super excited to kind of dive into all those different open data sets to try to see what's actually out there.
What the linked
And
up,
then
the linked open data stuff or what?
yeah, like DBpedia, Music Brains, he mentions those a lot, but like there seems
Yeah.
to be like a lot more, and I wonder how mature and active they are. And
Yeah.
um,
Oh,
yeah,
I like to do another review. Like maybe it's just because they haven't been indexed, but like some of those things like Falcons and Swoogle or whatever, they were academic and experimental. So I don't know if they actually exist anymore. I mean, like because they were just like grant funded. It wasn't like a company or anything.
mm,
And so I mean, so that's uh, they've been around for a while. Some of them have, but like the concern is like, well, they get shut down too. So, I mean,
right,
so
yeah,
like, but I guess the interesting thing is like the indexers or whatever, the underlying like architecture to index and do exploratory search that's still around. I mean, so like if you had data to run it on, you could recreate some of it. Um,
hmm
but but the things like Falcons, where you could like search for a specific ontology for like describing an animal, like a giraffe or something, and you get all the ontologies that have giraffes in them. I don't, and that was really useful. I don't know if that actually exists anymore, but it might. Um, but
yeah.
but I didn't want to like burst your bubble. But that's always something to think about, and the like.
So what you're saying is like data most of the time, like these data sets aren't really like worth using because you're
I
kind of hitching your wagon to something that may or may not go offline or go defunct and be less usable.
Well, I mean, sometimes the ontology, but sometimes this whole semantic web tools kind of go the way of the dodo bird too. I mean, just
Yeah.
um, so like um, I don't know. We might be the the pioneers who bring it back to in the distributed web space, and people start like contributing data. And, we're just the seed to make that happen. Because we
Yeah.
we studied the architecture and kind of. what would allow that to make happen. We did the groundwork and the tilling and stuff, and like other people are going to start planting stuff in the garden, and it's going to start growing. Um, but like
Yeah.
my impression is like semantic web had a lot of annotations and like the pages and enhanced Google search, but like it didn't necessarily ever get to its total potential. Um, Probably, and like maybe that's still to be realized. So it's like,
Mhm.
so you can take two views. Is like it didn't work in the. It either has worked, it's in its early stages, or it didn't work and it's totally dead and never worked. So, but I try to take the optimistic approach, even though that's
Yeah.
costly. Um, the but yeah, it is kind of cool and like to see like these thinking because it's like kind of historical. Um, like seeing like semantic search and like how semantics really can enhance discoverability of data because
Mhm.
it's just not like um because a lot of in in my mind like you've had like aggregation by statistics, but this is like the Noam Chomsky versus Peter Norvig argument of like, well, Noam Chomsky said, well, it's like you can't necessarily uh, attribute things by causation. Causation doesn't attribute correlation or something. Is that what it's called?
Mhm.
Correlation doesn't uh, mean causation, or I don't know how they say it. But so like you have a camera and you keep seeing a bird out there, and they say, well, that must mean like the ice cream truck shows up when that happens too. This is like there must be something related, but maybe not, and like just because the statistics say that, and maybe that's like how a lot of AI models are based by statistics, then like
Mhm.
if that's not the case, you're gonna have to have some sort of semantic thing put into humans to say, well, it's actually there's nothing. You reason, well, there's nothing to the bird showing up has nothing to do with ice cream trucks or something. Um, so yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of things I don't know, um, but I guess the yeah is like, well, how still the like how can these be complementary and like how all ontologies how can you allow for heterogeneous like I think like um, the oh right the Hydra thing that I keep talking about and that's has the guy at MIT with the pi category theory David Spivak. I could give it a link to the talk, but like he's basically under the auspice that there's never going to be like what's called like an upper ontology, like Umble or OpenPsych or something like that. Well, Umble's upper mapping execution something layer, but it's like a subset of OpenPsych, which is this big kind of open ontology to kind of map everything. Um,
Mhm.
but the his argument is like nobody's gonna really necessarily agree on everything. So
Right.
then you have to kind of settle on like intelligent mappings and like how do you represent um, RDF and ontologies mathematically, and how do you preserve their structure of relationships so you can map from one to the other. Um, and then it's like it's kind of like Russian dolls. There's some that depend on others, and you have to. There's some tenets of uh, category theory. It's just like sort of like group theory, but it includes relationships, well, and links. Um, so, I mean, how do you when you so it helps you do the science. Spivak had the science of compositionality. So when you're merging two different data sets, you're composing things, but you don't want to break thing. You don't want to break relationships when you do that, right? So like this is kind of like the category theory is the science of abstraction. So it's just a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tool to um, hold down the connections and the relationships while you're focused on other things, because it's like for the human brain you can only think about 5 things at once. You have a bunch of different projects at once. You can only think about so many things at once. So this is like tries to get it's a tool that kind of in my perception to get beyond human limitation, to compose things together. um,
Mm.
I don't know. I think this entire kind of project and discoverability phase just tried to get beyond the capacity of one single mind can really do, or one single mind can do temporally and spatially, I guess, and capacity wise too. So I mean, I guess it's kind of compositionality, interoperability, and distributed nature. Well, I mean that like these are kind of fundamental facts that you get in like the world, what you're dealing with. So you kind of have to. This is like they're not necessarily to me like nice to have. This is just like the reality of the world. When you're trying to design a system, you have to include these things. It's not like, well, I just love distributed systems or I just love interoperability. It's like what happens. Um, so I don't know. Did anybody else have some thoughts about? I guess we were visiting 40 through 47, right?
Yep, the last 7 videos.
Yeah. Uh,
The exploratory search video, the last one, that seemed where he got the most excited because that's where everything kind of leads to.
Mm.
It was really cool, but as he pointed out, very hard to build those interfaces, and they're actually useful, and you don't just end up in a confusing spot. Although the Newegg category finder used to be amazing, and it's devolved over the years. So maybe they need some RDF.
Well, I
For
think
sure.
it's probably interesting because the search space for those types of things, as the market increases, becomes harder and harder. The ontologies for capturing that search space is tricky. Like, for example, Amazon used to be really great at searching for books. Now it's terrible. And I think there's a generalization problem where as the number of things that they're trying to index becomes larger, the ontology for describing specifics begin to overlap each other. So, like, for example, when you search for your search terms basically become genericized. So the search engine can't just use like keywords anymore.
Mm.
And so, like for example, a keyword, like let's say you're searching for screws. Like screws could be screws for mechanical engineer. Screws can be for construction. Screws could be screwdrivers for for alcoholic beverages. Screws could be like a whole whole series of different things. And if you just throw a search term out there, you'll never get what you're actually looking for. That's one of the reasons why like Google search used to be so good, because it basically built profiles for your search history. And so like the algorithm would be very tuned in to what you're looking for. Amazon's slowly doing some of that, but it's still the same thing where they've not really accepted that. The whole there's always like this tension between sponsors and like sales metrics and trying to get your eyeballs to a certain product, but it doesn't necessarily help you find what you're actually looking for.
Yeah, I think your point about the need for further specificity, the more data you have, is really, really important, because I see that come up in all different parts of my life. Like just recently, yesterday, I had like kind of a task list going, or of different topics of discussion with a friend of mine, and And we have like 3 of those lists, and we keep having to create new ones because it gets so large that it's not useful anymore. And the time it takes to kind of like look through the list is like not prioritized or whatever, or there's like high priority things mixed in with low priority things. So then we create a new list and bring over the high priority things, and you just really keep having to do that, because when you're dealing with something that's living and changing and growing, it's going to outgrow the ontology. And so, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like you're doomed um, to not be able to find things the bigger the data set gets, because RDF is so flexible that I don't believe that's the case. But I think what does need to happen is the specificity of the attributes and the metadata of each thing and the relationships to other things needs to go up in order for that to be found in a larger data set.
This is how AI optimizes my schedule. This meeting got canceled. Hooray! We didn't really want to go anyways. But now I've...
Oh, sorry, did you hear that? Sorry.
Yeah. That's all right.
I thought we were having a mid-meeting ad.
Damn it. I pretty much got my thought out anyways. I think it's a really important thing. Like, I think the specificity needs to go up in larger data sets in order for it to be functional still. Yeah, and also fuck search engines and the fact that they use SEO so that people with more money and power and resources get on the front page. Like, that's just, no, that's not good.
Well, yeah, but I want to point in 2 different. Any one language long enough to become a master in it. So I'm basically just like a super specialist generalist in like 5 or 6 different languages, which is great. But it means that like once a program reaches a certain size, I run into these edge cases that can completely sink projects. So I'm really fascinated where this type of technology can go long term to create like a body of knowledge that can basically like help accelerate and augment my own capabilities.
Yeah, I think that's the like golden trophy scenario of AI right now. Is the like sidekick that works alongside you and knows all this large information, then knows how it's specific to you and can tailor it to your specific field. And, like, me and one of I guess colleagues that's a doctor, he's like real big into using AI in his work, and he's found it so much easier to be able to gather information across the research articles to be able to treat patients better. And medical is gonna use the hell out of AI.
Yeah, the problem is that hospitals are evil, and well,
Yeah.
they're financially driven. They're not patient healthcare driven.
Right, and the patient is dying. They're very driven to just give their money over.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, I agree though. Like my wife's a radiologist, and they're like, she's like, she doesn't like, every so often like somebody will come up and be like, yeah, your job is going to be replaced by AI soon, but like that's not really what's going to happen. It's going to basically be like a spell check, or it's going to be assistance for that type of stuff. I think that's a thought I'm going to throw out there. I think I lost it though. So.
I wonder like how much it's LLMs and how much it's RAGs. Like if I'm really just kind of like training a custom RAG model that I can then feed to whatever LLM. Like, it doesn't matter at that point, I think, at least. And then also with the whole like AI sidekick, helping you get more refined data, I think that implies that you need to train that sidekick automatically based on what you're doing, which implies you need to have a singular kind of like information space that you're dealing with. Like right now, the conversation we're having in this, in this Discord, is that this information is being stored elsewhere than maybe what I'm writing in Obsidian or what I'm posting on Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever. And so I feel like in order for a person to really like effectively train a custom model that they can then use to help them be more efficient in work and all of that, you have to kind of like be working from a singular base that it can be trained in. Which, yeah, it's like I that's kind of like what I'm like an aspect of what I'm trying to work on too. Is like, why do I have to be in all of these different interfaces, like, and how can I kind of connect them all to one interface that that's kind of like my home in a way, at least as much as possible.
So I know you can bridge a bunch of things. And I think the other thing is that you can also like I've been working on this problem like slightly because the problem we have right now is that we've got information like you really want LLMs at the edge. We're probably like a generation or two behind where we really want to be, where it's actually going to be everyday useful. But it's being pushed pretty quickly. The problem is it's being pushed by people like Microsoft and like Intel. So what they're going to basically do is create a walled garden where they control the LLM interface, and they'll allow you to pay a exorbitant amount of money so to access these tools and resources. From like a software freedom and software foundation, or from a freedom and foundation standpoint, like I think we're kind of like need to jettison the Microsoft model as much as possible. And we're actually really, and one of the places where that may actually happen is like basically like an AI accelerator that can be built off of open source tools that can be owned and operated by a individual